Hi, my name is TK, and welcome to Top of the Fridge to you. I'm making a ground beef pot pie. I know that sounds weird. So what I'm going to start with first is I've already got all my ingredients laid out. I did my mise en place, everything in place. Well, hopefully everything. We'll see. I'm forgetful sometimes. What I'm going to start with is I'm going to preheat my oven to 375, and then I'm going to grease and flour a cake pan, which is what I'm going to be making my pot pie in. And before I roll out my pie dough, which you will find the recipe for on my blog, which will be listed below, before I start doing that, I'm going to go ahead and start heating up my pan on medium heat. And over here I have my salt, my pepper, which you're going to do those to taste. And then I have my garlic powder. Love my garlic powder. I'm probably going to use 2 teaspoons to about a tablespoon of that. And then my paprika, I think I'll probably use about 1 teaspoon, half a teaspoon or 1 teaspoon. Because those are kind of my favorite spices. This is 1 pound of beef, ground beef, 7327, and we will not be draining this in a colander. We're going to use a little fat that's left over after we cook this to cook our potatoes. We'll start cooking our potatoes. After this is cooked, we're going to use a slotted spoon. I don't know if you can see that very well. I can't. The screen's small for me. And we're going to just scoop it out and put it in this here bowl. So I'm pretty generous with my salt, and somehow my mother still needs more salt when she eats, but I'm pretty generous with it. We'll say that's good enough. We're still going to need salt and pepper later for when we do the gravy for the pot pie. And I do a fair amount of pepper. My stepfather likes pepper, and so does my stepbrother. Then I'm just gonna sprinkle over the garlic powder. I would say that's yeah, that's good. That's I might have done too much, but oh well, we'll live. Trust me. Garlic's good for you. It helps. I think it helps boost your immune system, so it's good for you. Definitely. And yeah, and a little bit more. I'd say that's about a teaspoon. Yeah. And we're just going to go ahead and start breaking it up a little bit, because spices get in the pan. You don't want the spices to start burning, so you just kind of break up the meat and incorporate the spices into it. And you're going to want a good amount of flour for this. So we're just going to, oven's preheated, we're just going to grab a good handful and just drop it. Probably another handful. Yeah, that looks good. And then we'll grab a little bit more. Grab a rolling pin. It's not a French rolling pin, which is the ones that are just kind of sloped at the end. It's one of those classical rolling pins. Yeah. Oh, got flour on the floor. Oops. You just kind of rub the flour. I'm gonna stick the aluminum foil here in the sink, so if I have any scraps, I can catch the scraps with that. And I've got, it's most of a dough disc. I used a little piece of it when I was making my pork pot pies, which are also on my blog. It's the same blog post that the pie dough is on. Okay, so I'm just going to start rubbing up this flour a little bit, just getting it all over the counter. There we go. I'm just going to because the dough's a little tacky. I froze it and defrosted it in the fridge today. We're just going to start going back and forth. Okay, Now, this dough is not quite as thin yet as I want it to be. I want it really thin, like, I'm not sure if this is accurate, but I want to say an eighth of an inch thin. Not sure if that's an accurate measurement though, because I'm not really good with measuring as far as thickness. I guess that's something that comes with time. But since this is not quite as thin as I want, and it's kind of expanding beyond my parameters here, I'm going to cut off a piece with a sharp knife, because you don't want to tear the dough. Just want to cut it. Just want to cut off a piece of it here. And I'm going to throw that piece into the aluminum foil after I dust it off a little bit here. And there's a lot of flour on that. I'm just going to toss it into the aluminum foil and okay, good. I'm going to set this down here. So we're probably still going to use that because I got to use the remaining dough to make the crust, the top crust. Okay. So, like I told you, just going to kind of pick it up and lay it over, roll over it. And I'm just going to kind of hold it. I'm going to dust it off a little bit. I shouldn't blow on it. That's not hygienic. Don't do that. Don't want to hide piece of flour. But okay, that'll do. Alright, and then you're just going to come over here and just like that, and just roll it back out. Gently, gently, gently. Just like that, and it's going to kind of start falling into the pie tin on its own. And I'm going to show you more on the pie tin in a minute, or cake tin. But for now, let's move over here. I'll get out a fork real quick because I'm going to need that for my cake tin in a minute. But yeah, this is done. You can smell it, you can hear it, it is done. Okay, what we're going to do is go ahead and scoop this meat out. And I'm going to take my 2 small potatoes. Alright, well, not small potatoes. It was 1 regular potato and 2 small potatoes, which equals 2 regular potatoes. And we're just going to dump those. They're all cubed up into small pieces. We're just going to dump that right into the frying pan here. Just kind of make sure they're all broken apart, because they're not really wanting to break apart for some reason. And just kind of stir them around. Okay. Now, these are going to kind of start sticking to the pan, which, no, that's not really that great of a thing, but it's okay. They're cooking. You want them to cook. And it's okay if they get a little brown, too. It's fine. Trust me. Alright. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just bring this whole cake pan over. And just going to lift the sides and drop them in a little bit. Sides, drop them in a little bit. Just try to help form it to the cake pan. It's easier than trying to press it in and stretching the dough, which is already thin, and possibly tearing it. So, okay. Yeah, and there's a lot of excess on here still, which I was not really expecting, but it happened. So, I'm just going to grab my my pizza cutter, and I'm just going to come under the lip here and start cutting around. Just turn it and cut, and I might have to go back and lift it and cut some more. Just turn back and forth. It's okay. Totally cool. Not going to hurt nothing. And I need to stir these potatoes, so I'm just going to drop that real quick and stir these. Okay. And I'm going to keep cutting this dough. And by the way, you always want your dough for your pies and stuff to be as cold as possible. That's why I pulled this out of the fridge at the last minute, because it helps create a flakier crust. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pierce the bottom several times with a fork. And what that does is help keep the bottom from puffing up. And not only am I going to do that, I'm also going to blind bake it. And the reason I'm going to blind bake it is so the gravy doesn't soak through the bottom and make it all soggy and yucky. So I have a piece of aluminum foil here that I've already kind of pressed in the pan. As you can see, it's all bent up so that I make sure that I have enough there. And bag of beans. Now after you've used beans for blind baking, you cannot use them again. So once you've used some beans for blind baking, store them in a Ziploc baggie and keep them for the next time you blind bake. And the other reason I'm blind baking is because I don't want the crust to fall in. I had that problem with my pork pot pies. Some of the crust, just a couple of them, tried to fall in on the sides. And I didn't put that on my blog. I meant to, but I didn't. Alright, you can hear these potatoes going. They're getting really brown on the bottom. It's not a bad thing, not a bad thing at all. But it does mean that we're going to need to start adding our moisture soon. So, I'm going to blind bake this. I'm going to say 7 minutes. I did 5 minutes with my pork pot pies because they were mini pot pies. But I'm going to say 7 minutes on this one just because it's larger and because I've also got those beans in there. I'm probably going to take a couple minutes for those beans to heat up a little bit. So, pie crust into the oven and set the timer for 7 minutes. And now we're going to go ahead and get our moisture in. This is half a cup of chicken stock, a cup and a half of milk, and half a cup of half and half. Don't say that 5 times fast. I know I couldn't do it, so don't try to do it. Okay, so we're getting that in there. And we're going to stir these potatoes. Just loosen them from the bottom because they're kind of sticking a little bit. Not very bad, especially since I added the liquid. But we're going to go ahead and stir that up a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add a package of brown gravy mix. I know it's cheating, but the stuff gives it a lot of flavor and it helps thicken it very, very well. So we're going to go ahead and add that. And just stir it to incorporate it, and then we'll go let it come to a boil. A slow boil. And we're keeping on medium heat. Alright, and it's starting to get to where it's bubbling a little bit. Just barely. But I want a bit more of a bubble. I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I got here. This is an 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. I've already opened it. I'm just throwing it away now. You didn't see that. Still got flour all over my hands too. Ugh. So that really didn't taste that good. Alright, and it's starting to bubble a little bit more. That's good. That's what we want. Okay. It's bubbling a good bit, so I'm going to go ahead and add the tomato sauce. And then I'm going to stir this as well as I possibly can until it's completely incorporated. And that takes a good few minutes. Now, here I have 2 stalks of celery and 2 carrots. Carrots peeled and halved and sliced. And the celery halves and sliced. And I'm just going to, it's 2 of each. I'm just going to go ahead and put those in here. Just kind of scrape up the bowl a little bit here for little stragglers in there. Just going to give that a quick little stir here so they can spread out and start cooking. Get a little tender. You want to get them just barely fork tender. And then they will bake, and when they bake the rest of the way, they will be good. I'm going to put this in the sink real quick. And I want to come back over here, and since our pie dough is pre-baked already, let's see, hold on. Yeah, I can handle that. Alright, that's what it looks like now. Whoop. Oh, piece of the crust came off. Whoops. Yeah, that's what it looks like now. So, I didn't see that. What I want to do, tap, drop, but just the sauce off that, the gravy off that. I went ahead and start putting ground beef in. And just kind of spread it around a little bit. Yeah. Just like that. You want a good generous dose of salt in this. And that like that. Here. And a good little bit of pepper. That should be plenty. I'm just going to go ahead and stir this up again. All those flavors incorporated. And I'm going to turn this down to just below medium. About a notch under medium. And I was drinking soda. And then I'm going to roll out the top of the pie. So, just in here, just like that, maybe. And then I'm going to very carefully open the freezer. Grab my pie crust. Should be good and cold again. There it is. I can feel it. I didn't quite seal it the aluminum foil all the way, so some of it felt a little stiff. It's not a good thing. But I'll live. And I'm just going to squeeze it back into a ball. Just like that. And you don't want to handle the dough too much because, you know, the heat from your hands and the butter, and it just won't be that great pie crust anymore. I'm going to take some of this flour, spread it back out. Just all nice and clean here. I'm just going to cut both sides of the flour. And you can see it's not completely all together, sticking anything, but yeah, that piece of there not sticking. So let's do that. So I'm just going to work it out as best as we can. This is good and bubbly, and it is a really dark orange now. Okay. All right. I want to use that fork because I used pure pie crust earlier. Just test out some of these veggies. We'll start with potato because that's the first one I pierced. just right. Now I've got a carrot and a celery at the same time, so we'll go ahead and test both of those. And I'm not worried about a sanitation issue with me sticking a fork that I just stuck my mouth back into the gravy. Because this is all going to go in the oven to bake anyway. It's going to go for a high temperature and bacteria will be killed off. Those are just tender enough. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. Set this back here and just let it cool for a minute. Just for a minute. Just a minute. And while I'm waiting to cool, I'm going to hang out another fork. Actually, I'm going to use, I was going to pierce tofu pie crust. Instead of doing that, I'm going to use the knife I tried to use earlier to cut the dough with. And I'm just going to cut a few little slits in the top of the pie crust. And that's so it can vent and then bubble out over. And speaking of which, cookie sheet. I'm going to put the cake pan, pot pie, onto the cookie sheet before I stick it in the oven. And that's just in case it does somehow bubble over. It doesn't go all over the bottom of the oven and make a huge mess. So, this has cooled a good bit. So I'm going to, and see, it's kind of loose gravy, that's okay. It's perfectly fine. Just going to go ahead and start adding it in here. I'm going to make sure I get a good amount of veggies in here. I'm probably going to have some gravy left over, but it's perfectly fine. Save it, eat it as a soup or something, I don't know. It'll be good. Let's see. I might not have any gravy left over because it looks like this pie is actually going to take all of it. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. There's veggies in there. All that gravy goodness. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Over here. Just like that. Oh yeah. It's beautiful, isn't it? Alright. I'm going to come in here and just cut the crust. Stab it a little bit. Okay, I need the pizza cutter. Oops. Crack the crust a little bit. Again. There we go. I'm just going to move all this excess pie dough. Oops. Stuck a little bit there. It's stuck a little bit there. No! Sorry, I'm a little nutty. And there's nothing for me to do. These pie dough scraps. So I'm going to toss them. Such a waste. I'm just going to make 4 little incisions here. Just trying to make it a little fancy when I do it too. So kind of make a little star pattern thing here. And this is going to go back in the oven. It's still at 375. Whoa. I tried to slide off there. It's going to go in the oven for 25 minutes. And during those 25 minutes, I'm going to be cleaning up, and I will see you when I return. Thank you. Hi again. It's me. Not on top of the fridge anymore, but you usually will be. But for this final shot, I decided to bring you down to the stove level because in just a few seconds, this timer is going to go off, and we're going to pull this pot pie out of the oven, and I'm going to let you see it. And it's going to be beautiful. Okay, so we're just waiting. Aha! There it goes. Alright. Smells delicious. Alright, just letting the heat come up there. And we'll pull this out. Oh my goodness. That looks fantastic. Let's see here. See it? Let's see, I'm trying to get it to a good angle here. It's not going to spill all over the place. But, there you have it. One ground beef pot pie. And it's not delicious, I won't be posting this video. It's delicious. You'll see it. From top of the fridge to you. Have a good one.